The Radio Memories Network is brought to you in part by Liberated Syndication, podcast publishing made easy, libsyn.com. That's libsyn.com.
Welcome to the Old Time Radio Network Detective Stories, continuing America's love affair with private eyes. We now go back to the early days of radio and our imaginations with our feature presentation.
Calling Chief Inspector West. Calling Chief Inspector West.
Stand by for West. A crime file, based on John Creasy's novel, Battle for Inspector West. Dramatized for radio by Maurice Travers. Battle for Inspector West, starring Patrick Allen as Chief Inspector Roger West of Scotland Yard and Sarah Lawson as his wife Janet. Part 5. Trail from a tip-off.
Does your throat feel dry, Roger West?
What?
There is coffee here, if you would like it.
I would like it, Miss Julietta.
Why not just Julietta? Let us not be so formal. Here you are. And good morning to you, Roger. Or did you think you would never wake to another morning?
Never wake. Oh, yes, last night. That's if it was only last night.
It was. Does it all come back to you now?
With a rush. The motor cruiser, the dining saloon.
Help yourself to sugar, Roger.
On second thoughts, I'd rather skip this coffee, thanks all the same.
Do not be so suspicious. It is quite unadulterated, I give you my word.
Which is more than could be said for the food I ate last night.
Were you afraid you had been poisoned?
As I recall, I was in no position to come to a considered opinion. All I remember is a spinning head and then, wham, blackout.
You broke one of my beautiful Bohemian goblets.
I apologize. You might tell your friend Corrosian from me.
You may tell him yourself, Chief Inspector. I think I will join you in some coffee. Julietta, if you please.
Of course.
And what did you wish to tell me, West?
Only a suggestion. Next time you decide to dope my dinner, choose something that leaves less of a nasty taste in the mouth.
Thank you, Julietta. West, you were drugged for two reasons. First, to demonstrate how easily I could have taken your life.
And second, or so I presume, to transfer me from that cruiser of yours to, well, wherever I happen to be at this moment.
Quite correct.
Also quite clever of you, Roger.
Now, just where have I been brought to, I wonder? Rather an imposing room, this one. Very much the old stately home vintage, huh? Not quite your style, though, Corrosian.
You think not?
No bars on the windows. That's the kind of establishment for you, ideally speaking.
The disadvantage of ideals is the difficulty of achieving them, as you have, I think, come to realize. Bars on these windows are unnecessary. The drop is a sheer one, of over 50 feet.
Any objection to my taking a look?
None whatever. By all means, do.
Fine, spacious grounds. Thick belt of trees, nice and private.
Oak trees, Roger. And there is a high wall behind them, all the way round.
I rather thought there might be. Do I hear the baying of the happy killer hounds? You run to more than one Alsatian, I gather.
As well as to a number of armed men who make regular patrols of the ground.
Is that a fact? But what's really exercising my mind is just where this grand estate of yours is located.
Don't trouble yourself with that.
Oh, but I'm always curious. Didn't you know? Why else do you think I went down to Skelbourne so obligingly?
Obligingly? What exactly do you mean by that?
What do you think I mean by it?
You came precisely and only because I arranged matters to ensure that you would.
I came precisely and only because I knew that you'd arranged matters to ensure that I would.
You knew it was a trap?
From the word go, Julietta. Corrosian, you surprise me. I gave you credit for being brighter than that. Didn't it even begin to dawn on you that I might have seen through your little setup?
And what did you hope to gain by voluntarily placing yourself in my power?
I'm a confirmed reformer. I thought I might make you see the light, turn you from the error of your wicked ways, persuade you into giving everything to charity and joining the Salvation Army.
Roger, I like you. Yes, I like you.
Be quiet, Julietta. And as for you, West, don't be flippant. Unless you regard your life as a subject to be treated lightly.
Far from it. But you won't kill me. Not yet a while, anyway.
What leads you to believe so?
Don't take me for a complete idiot. You've had all the chances you could ask for to snuff me out. If you haven't done it, that's because you've got something else in mind for me. If I know anything about the way you operate, probably something a damn sight nastier than a straightforward killing.
Roger West, I like you more and more.
It seems possible, Chief Inspector, that I have slightly underestimated you. Just slightly. We shall talk again later, at greater length. At the moment, there are matters which call for my attention. I shall need you, Julietta.
I'm coming. Au revoir, Roger. We shall talk again later also. I think I will enjoy that.
All right, Sergeant Gill, come in.
Yes, sir.
Well, anything new to report, Sergeant?
Only the check on Michael Grant, sir. He left Dorset, as we know, for the Excelsior Hotel in Skelbourne.
And on orders from Corrosion, as we can be pretty damn sure.
He hasn't returned to the Excelsior or to Dorset.
What about here in London? His flat in Belgrave Square. Haven't overlooked that, have you?
No, sir. But there's no sign of him there either. Seems pretty certain he was on board that motor cruiser, too.
So now Corrosion's got Christine Grant and her husband, as well as Roger West. And we've not a clue as to where he's been taken.
No, sir.
Is Mrs. Grant's father still being watched?
Arthur Morley, yes, sir. But there's been no further move from him. That's to say, nothing suspicious.
And the 3 VIPs that West wanted put under observation?
We've got men on 2 of them, sir. Sir Arnold Dana and Lord Riversley. The other one, Mr. Laszlo Barai, isn't back yet from Oslo.
Yes, economic conference or some such. All right, Gill, see that a man's put to watch him the moment he returns to London. But the first priority is Corrosion's HQ. Without a lead to his hideout, we're stymied, Sergeant. That's the only word for it.
Chelsea 1492.
Hello, would I be speaking to Mr. West, Mrs.?
Yes, Janet West here. Who's that?
Oh, you don't know me, but you might heard your old Chief Inspector talk about me. I'm Pearly Willis.
Yes, I have heard Roger mention you, Mr. Willis.
Yeah, he's private hotline to the Villainy Brigade. That's what he calls me, when he ain't calling me rude names like Whiskey Boys, for instance.
Mr. Willis, is there something I can do for you?
Oh, vice versa, Mrs. W. Look, just tell me this. Where is the Inspector, eh?
Well, he's away at the moment on a case.
Is he now? Mrs. W, I've got to talk to you. Could be double important for Mr. West.
Yes, I'm listening.
No, not on the phone. Look, there's a coffee place in a Fulham Road called the Dizzy Miller. Can you meet me there in, say, an hour?
Why can't you come here to Bell Street?
Oh, because I shouldn't be seen nowhere near the Inspector's place, that's why. Them smart geezers ever got word that me and Mr. West was chummy. Well, how'd I ever get any info to pass on to him, eh?
All right, whatever you say, Mr. Willis.
Right. Oh, here. How will I know you? You better tell me what you look like.
Well, I have dark hair, grey eyes, and I'm wearing a lime green dressing jacket.
Favourite. Fulham Road, Dizzy Miller, in an hour. Let's have that table over there in the corner, Mrs. W.
All right, Mr. Willis.
Oh, stick to Pearly. I'm all used to it. Here we are.
Now, Pearly, what do you have to tell me?
Well, to start with, you got to know something. When it comes to Mr. West, I'm dead straight, 22 carat. I mean, he trusts me, like, you see?
Yes, I know he does,
So
Pearly.
you can trust me same as what he does, can't you?
Of course.
Right. It was me what first gave him a tip-off about Corrosion being back in England. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Well, no, I hears a little whisper in certain quarters, see? Buzz is going round that Corrosion's pulled a stroke. Got his hands on the Chief Inspector in the yard, don't know which way to turn. Now, would that be on the level, Mrs. W?
Yes, Pearly, it would.
Right, then. Now, you tell old Chatty... Oh, pardon me, I ought to say Chapworth, Sir Guy, for the use of... You tell him to keep his mince pies well and truly on a certain Mr. Jack O'Dempster.
Jack O'Dempster?
He's a Corrosion man. Or he was till Corrosion shopped him. Jack got sent up for 3 years, but he's out of the nick now, and I run into him today in a boozer down Shadwell way.
Yes, but what is he to do with...
Wait a minute. Now, just listen, Mrs. W. Jack O's got it in for Corrosion, and no mistake. We're grassing on him, see? Brought it out for his blood he is. Now, here's a bit what really counts.
Yes, Pearly?
He swears he knows just where to find Corrosion. What's more, he reckons to be taken off for wherever that might be any old time now. Now, you tell the yard boys that, all right?
Yes, of course I will. But, Pearlie, why don't you tell them all this yourself?
Of course, Mr. West's the only copper I'd ever give a time of day to, that's why. You know, last time I done porridge, you know what he done? So after my old lady used to visit her, slip her a quid or two and talk to her. And you be sure and tell Chatworth to keep the hogs on Jacko Dempster double careful. Tell him not to let him out of their blooming sight. Now, you get me, Mrs. W. You tell him.
You have done what, Detective Sergeant?
Lost Jacko Dempster, sir.
I see. Our one lead, the one hope we had of finding Chief Inspector West, and you've lost him. Sergeant Gill, I should very much like to know how you managed to achieve that.
The man I put on the job, sir, Dempster, gave him the slip somehow.
Somehow? What kind of officer did you depute for the task? A copper with one leg and blind in both eyes?
That's hardly fair, sir.
Chatworth? What? Sergeant Gill? Oh, yes, he's here. Well, you can give the message to me, thank you. Where? I see. Goodbye. That was a message from your blind, one-legged copper, Sergeant. It seems he may have pulled the chestnuts out of the fire, for which he and you may be duly grateful. He's traced Dempster to London Airport. Dempster caught a plane for Ireland.
Ireland?
To Shannon. You'll be on the next possible flight, Gill.
Yes, sir.
In the meantime, I'll contact Dublin Police Headquarters, tell them you're on the way. Ask for their cooperation. As those civic guard chaps can be rather touchy, not that I blame them. I'd feel the same myself if any of their fellows turned up on our doorstep unannounced. Well, get on with it, Sergeant. Get moving.
You may be seated, West. I'm afraid that our talk has been deferred a little longer than I intended. Can I offer you a drink? A brandy?
Not too early in the day. I'm strictly a son-over-the-yardarm man. But you go ahead. Don't let me stop you.
Thank you. If there were any hope of your stopping me in anything I plan to do, it must have long since vanished. You realize that, I'm sure.
Things take quite a time to sink in with me, Corrosion. Now, suppose we skip the patter and get down to the Inquisition or whatever.
Hardly an Inquisition. For occasions of that nature, I employ more drastic procedures, I assure you. No, let us describe this as a discussion. And to begin it, I should like you to tell me what you think of me.
That's sticking your neck out, isn't it?
I should be interested to hear your opinion of me. You may be perfectly frank.
Corrosion, there just aren't enough words in the book for what I feel about you.
What you feel. Yes, that's your weakness, West. Your emotions. You have intelligence, perception, courage. But for all that, you're a simple man who believes in the simple rules of right and wrong, and the virtues of sympathy, kindness, compassion. All the immature values of an unnatural civilization.
Unnatural?
Certainly. Man is the product of nature. The laws of nature are simple too, of course, but completely different. The tiger doesn't concern himself with the rights and wrongs of his hunger. He merely satisfies it. The ivy has no sympathy for the tree which it strangles. It does so, and that is all. What do you find so amusing, Wes?
Corrosion, cut out the eyewash. You can't justify yourself by some kind of cockeyed moral philosophy. You're just another villain, bigger than most, cleverer than most. Maybe that's what makes you more vicious than most, but just another crook, that's all.
So you have an opinion of me, after all?
That's right. By comparison, a man like Arthur Morley, who strangles his wife out of jealousy, seems almost a gentleman. In any case, I don't quite see you as an ivy somehow. A tiger now, well, that's coming a bit closer. With Giulietta as your mate. There's something of the tigress about her, I'd say.
It's interesting that you should mention her. Giulietta was an experiment of mine.
Just what do you mean by an experiment?
I found her many years ago, an orphan in a slum, living from hand to mouth. I recognized the physical beauty behind the rags and the dirt, and I decided to embark on what would be called a venture in conditioning. You've no doubt heard of Pavlov and his dog.
The conditioned reflex, yes, I know about that.
Well, nowadays there are far more advanced techniques.
A brainwashing, that's what you're talking about.
Oh, it is one term for it. As the results with Giulietta exceeded my expectations. In her, the emotions, as you would understand the word, West, have been virtually eradicated, together with the concepts of good and bad. For Giulietta, the only right and wrong, the only values that she knows, are my wishes. What I like and what I do not like. Come to the window a moment. Look out there, West. Julieta and her favorite, Lucifer. Yes, I've even provided her with a safety valve. Some outlet for what remains of her affections.
You mean the dogs, the Alsatians?
Precisely. The experiment has been an unqualified success.
Success? Is that what you call it? To take someone, distort their whole nature? Lord knows I thought you capable of any crime, any kind of evil, Corrosion, but something like this.
Evil, crime, distortion. All meaningless words. Julieta is perfectly content. She has everything that she could want. Close the window. Now, Chief Inspector, we will turn to more immediate matters. I want to know... Yes, who is it?
Greenville.
Come in.
I was told you wanted to see me, sir.
I do, Renville. Come here, please.
Yes, sir.
Your identification, Renville. Where is it?
Oh, I've got it right here, sir, in my wallet.
Then what is this? I found it in the grounds this morning. You see the number on it? 15? Your number, if I'm not mistaken.
I must have dropped it, sir.
That was careless of you, Renvers. If it happens again, you will know what to expect. Take it and go.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
What was all that? Your way of providing a safety valve for your boys? You issue them with little red counters. What do they play? Tiddlywinks?
I'm the one who asks the questions, West. And I shall require absolutely truthful answers.
There seems to be your day for interruptions.
Yes? Who's that? Number 32. Go ahead. What name do you say? One moment. Chief Inspector, this is an important call. I will have to postpone the rest of our discussion for another time. The man waiting outside the door will take you back to your room.
Or perhaps you'll give me a game of tiddlywinks.
32, you may proceed now. Yes? Yes, I see. So Mr. Jacko Dempster is on his way here. You've done well to let me know. Very well. I shall arrange for his reception. Yes. Goodbye.
Pardon me, sir. Would I be having the honour to address Detective Sergeant Gill of Scotland Yard, by any chance?
Well, I don't know about the honour, but I'm Hubert Gill. And you are...
Desmond Anthony Malone, Superintendent of the Civic Guard, and at your service. Welcome to Shannon Airport and the Republic of Ireland, Sergeant.
Thank you. I'm very glad to meet you, Superintendent.
You'll be gladder still when you hear what I've got to tell you. I've got a line on the boy you've come after.
You have?
Yes, Mr. Jacko Dempster, or someone as like him as a pea in a pod according to the description, hired himself a car and headed its nose south from here.
Any idea where exactly?
Well, the tale he told was that he wanted to look at the lakes of Killarney. I have a car waiting for the Sergeant Gill, so shall we be on our way then?
Do you wish to turn back to the house, Roger? I do not think you are enjoying this walk with me, and that is hardly grateful when Corrosion has given permission for you to have the freedom of the ground.
Freedom? That's rather too large a word for it, Julieta. Those dogs running loose aren't miniature poodles. And those chaps over there aren't carrying pop guns.
But it is better than being cooped up in your room.
Oh, yes, much better.
Corrosion agreed to this with no difficulty. He is not as bad as you think him.
He couldn't possibly be.
But what I say is true. I will prove it to you, Roger. Do you see that car coming towards us?
Well?
I will stop it for a moment. Look in the back. Tell me who is there.
Good Lord. The Grants.
Yes. Mr. Michael Grant and his bride, Christine. You can drive on now.
What the hell's happened to them? There wasn't a move out of the pair of them. Has Corrosion...
They have been drugged, that is all. To make certain they can never know or tell where they have been. You see, Corrosion does not kill unless it is necessary.
So this is where Christine Grant's been hidden.
Yes. And now she and her husband have been given their freedom.
They have what?
Of course. Michael Grant did all that he was asked to do. As a consequence, he and his wife have been permitted to go.
If that's the truth...
Certainly it is the truth.
Then it's very interesting. Tell me something else, Julietta. Whereabouts in England are we, exactly?
This looks like England to you, Roger?
I'd say so. Would I be wrong? Hello. What goes on over there?
Huh? It is Lucifer.
And two more of the Alsatians.
They are making for the bushes between these trees.
And so are the guards.
The dogs must have seen something.
I see it too. A man running this way. I know him. It's Jacko Dempster. My God, they're on him.
Call them off! Call the dogs off! They'll tear him to pieces! I want him alive! Shoot! Shoot the dog!
No, Corrosion, no! Not my dogs, not Lucifer!
Shoot, you hear me? Dempster! Oh, fools! Stupid fools! You've shot Dempster, you imbeciles!
Dogs! I love me dogs! Oh, Lucifer!
Julietta, get away from here! Go back to the house!
You've killed him! My darling, my Lucifer's murdered!
Stop it, Julietta!
Don't touch me!
You're hysteric!
Corrosion, cut it out.
Don't you interfere, West!
I said leave her alone. Here, Julietta. Come on. Come on, let me help you up.
Oh, my dogs, Lucifer is dead!
Oh, be quiet! It's Dempster's death which matters. He came to kill me, West. And I'd planned to teach him how Corrosion deals with people like that. It's a pity. West, take Julietta back to the house. And you men, dispose of all this. It disorders the view.
Well, we're making fine time, Sergeant Gill. We'll be reaching Killarney well before dark, by my reckoning.
I only hope we can pick up Dempster's trail when we get there.
Aye, and that'll be leading you to Corrosion, eh? Not to speak of the famous Inspector West he's holding as his prisoner.
That's right, Superintendent.
Ah, well, now, Hennigan's the man to help us there.
And just who might this Hennigan be?
Sure, isn't he the police officer in charge of Killarney? If there's one man who knows everything that goes on in the whole of County Kerry, it's Matthew Francis Hennigan himself.
Good.
But now, you know, it'll be best if you leave me to talk to him by myself. You see, Matt Hennigan has a blind spot when it comes to the English. But never you fear, Sergeant Gill. I'll get out of him all the information he has. Now, there's a fine hotel in Killarney with as pleasant a bar as you could wish to see. I leave you to wait for me there.
Superintendent Balloon, over here.
Well, and here we are. And there's nothing like talking to give a man a thirst. And nothing like a bar for the quenching of it. Hey, Todd, a pint of your best there. And the same for me friend here.
What luck with Hennigan, Superintendent?
Well, now, it's all very interesting, Sergeant, to be sure. We had a fine, long conversation, and most of it to do with Canara.
Canara? Now, who, what, or where would that be?
'Tis a house, me friend. Thank you, Todd. A grand big house tucked away near the coast a little way from here, with its grounds stretching down to the sea.
On the coast, eh?
And they do say there's a fine craft comes and goes, a gleaming white motor cruiser.
Motor cruiser? Superintendent, who owns it? And this Canara place?
Well, now, Matt Hennigan tells me a rich man bought the place 5 years ago. There's no one knows much about him, for he has all his own people, and the tradesmen never go inside the grounds. Everything's delivered to the lodge. 'Tis said the gentleman has his own private plane, and armed men to guard the grounds. And there's talk of dogs roaming about the place. Fierce, savage creatures.
Alsatians?
Aye, so Hennigan says.
Superintendent, what about Jacko Dempster? Any trace of him?
Matt Hennigan tells me he heard of a man answering to the description of Dempster, who went towards Canara this morning and climbed the Great Wall. And after that, he wasn't seen again.
By the Lord, that's it then. Corrosion's hideout. We found it.
No, don't get excited, me fine dashing sergeant.
But, Superintendent...
For if what you've in mind is a raid on Canara, it'll take a small army. And we'll need to go careful, Sergeant Gill. As careful as mice with a cat round the corner.
Shut the door, West. This talk of ours has been too long delayed, but that is now to be remedied.
Yes, you've been having quite a busy time of it, haven't you, Corrosion? What with the Dempster business and Julietta. Oh, incidentally, how is she?
She's locked herself in her room since the incident. I have not seen her. And at the moment I cannot concern myself with a woman's hysteria over the death of some dogs. West, my plans are reaching their final stages.
Well, bully for you.
But I have one question for you to answer. And don't think of lying to me. As I never lie myself, I dislike it intensely when others indulge in the habit. Now, how much have you learned of my projects? Well?
Damn all, if that gives you any satisfaction. Except...
Yes?
Except that I'm more than halfway certain the whole Grant business, snatching Christine Grant and all the rest of the capers, has been just a cover-up right from the beginning.
You're not unintelligent, West, as I've already said. And what, in your opinion, was the Grant affair designed to cover up?
I haven't a clue. All I know is that it's big, with some big people involved.
Perfectly correct. It is to be a huge exercise, the greatest of Corrosian's career. A £10 million operation, Inspector West.
10 million?
And there's nothing that you or anyone else can do to stop it. Nothing at all. That is something for you to contemplate in the long watches of the night, West. Now you may go.
£10 million. What the hell can it be? What's he up to? What on earth? Who's that? Shh. Who is it?
Roger?
Julietta. What the devil? Oh, wait a minute, sir. I'll switch on a light. What are you doing here at this time of night?
You are still dressed. Good.
Yes, I've been doing some thinking. The dark usually helps, but not this time. Now, why are you here?
I will help you, Roger.
And by the look of you, you're the one who needs help. You're shaking like a leaf.
We can help one another. But first, you must do what I want. You are big enough, Roger. Strong enough. With my help, you can do it.
Do what, Julietta?
I want you to kill him. Kill Corrosian for me.
You've been listening to Patrick Allen and Sarah Lawson in the fifth part of Battle for Inspector West by John Creasy. Listen to Explosion in Red, the next episode of John Fawcett Wilson's production of Battle for Inspector West.